Hello, Julia.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm just trying to figure out how to turn my video on here.
It's okay. Take your time. I
Welcome,
am.
Lisa.
How are you doing this morning, Lisa?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Just organizing myself with
How's
some
your week?
assignments. Good. I actually got a mentee.
Oh,
Just
you
good.
did.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So, hold on, Lisa. So you picked up a mentee.
Um, she approached me. I attended a tech event, and she's interested in climate work. So climate and tech. So I was like, yeah, cool. That's fine.
That's so amazing, Lisa. We're about to sign a partnership with IESS, and it is climate action. It's a 3 day conference, and I want to call it, in the U.S. we call it PlantCon, and the PlantCon is essentially you go, all the farmers are out there, so you can get all the bakeries, all the straight from the garden selection type of option. So we're having that, and then we're also inviting like all the entrepreneurs with the latest innovation in climate. What is it? Sustainability. We're inviting them to come and pitch as well. This is going to be January of 2026. So anybody want to come to Kenya? Come on through. It's going to be a huge 3 day conference. So with the university, with one of our partnership universities. So, Lisa, you can definitely participate in that if you want. We have a women's session, which will cover some of the climate action conversations. So,
I
just putting
will
that out there for
also
you.
add there is a group called Landscape Ecology. So they do a
Yes,
lot of remote sensing and GIS work. So I
yes,
will also just highlight that with the team, and then if there is any, I'll also just tell everybody. But if there are
perfect.
details, you can send it so I can spread the news.
Yeah, I think you missed the point, Lisa. I'm just like recruiting you. I think you thought we were just having a conversation, but my sister, I beg, we are recruiting you. So just
Okay,
putting you on
that's
notice, I'm recruiting you. All right, so
all right.
let's
That's fine.
go to Julia. The reason why
All
we're
right.
here this morning is Julia Cosolo.
Cosolo, yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, all right, good. Casolo. So, Julia, thank you so much for coming to join us here on AWID Hub. We are so excited when Andrew brings people that are targeted towards the purpose of creating AWID Hub, which is essentially to train women, but most importantly, you're a woman. so, so we know that there are some dynamics that are just different from men to women, and it's not really about highlighting the negatives because we don't do that. We highlight what is important, the education and how we learn. So that's why we're so excited that you're able to come and share with us, how you've been able to get to where you're going, what made you do that. So before we do that, I have like a bunch of quirky questions.
Mm,
So,
so fun.
exactly, because I don't want to do the traditional "Hi, please introduce yourself." Because I personally find those boring. So, and I'm like, it's great. I want to know all about you, but there's things that is so distinct that you'll only answer when we ask certain questions, right? So now, here we go. Before we introduce you fully, what was the first product, digital or physical, that you ever fell in love with, and why?
Mm, very good question. So, actually, during my interview at ExperiencePoint, I was asked to bring a physical item. And
Hmm.
one of the things that I brought was there's this coffee pot. My dad is Italian, so a lot of the culture is around like coming together and sharing a coffee. So I actually brought in this coffee pot, and the cool thing is like with the pressure from the heat, all of the water passes through the coffee and like kind of goes into the upstairs section. So that was my first product. I can't even remember the name of it, but it is a coffee pot. That was the first one I fell in love with. And I thought, how cool. You just put it on the stove, and with the pressure, like the water rises and you get this great coffee, and it brings people together. It's like my favorite family activity, like having a little
Wow.
espresso together. Yeah.
So family's important to you. We're learning. Take
Mm.
note, everybody, right? So now, not to say other people's families aren't important to them, but some people love that cozy family moment. Other people are like, leave me alone. I am in the woods learning life, but I love you from a distance. So there's no judgment either way. But anyway, if you could describe your product in one emoji, what would it be?
Mm. Um, this is the product I'm building right now, or the kind of favorite product?
Whichever product it is, we're letting you choose one that that is jumps out at you.
Okay. I would say like the side eye emoji, like what's going on there? People are hopefully curious. People are wondering. It's like eye catching. It's a little different. So the one that's like peeking over to the side.
And no holes bar, right? I like that one because to me, I always do side eyes, but I don't move my eye. I'm still looking at you, but technically, my eye went that way when you said
In
that.
your head, in your head.
In my head, yeah, yeah, yeah. So we're gonna keep it real and be like, oh, yeah, that was wonderful. But anyway, so what's the most unusual or creative customer request you have ever received?
Mm.
Because I know there's some crazy ones out there because people are genuinely crazy sometimes. So, you know,
Mhm. I can one doesn't come to mind. It's often customizations. Like even people will have their own way of wanting like an email formatted. Like they'll refuse to use something if it's you're sending me the instructions in this specific way. So it's a lot of customizations. I can't think of anything too crazy, but in general, customizations that we always have to end up saying no to, because if we say yes to each one, we're creating millions of different products for each customer who walks through the door.
I'm gonna have a question about that
Yeah.
later, Julia. That's
right. So like right now I'm gonna say she is patient. So we've learned two things about Julia. Number one, she loves her family down. Like you talk about her family, you getting beat up. So just know that. Number two, she's very patient. It takes patience to be able to work in a field where people are constantly demanding things from you, and it also takes wisdom to be able to tell them hell no. So, so I was just wondering, did you also get a degree in psychology? Because
No degree, maybe just a personal interest.
okay, and this is the last segment of this, like little let's do icebreaker type of things. If you had unlimited budget for one dream feature, what would you build first?
Mm, that's a great one. Unlimited budget. I would definitely build in a kind of a AI version of Andrew. So what we do in our workshops, like we love to have the facilitator walk around the room and check in with everyone, give constructive feedback. And unfortunately, there's usually only one Andrew and his expertise at the workshop. So I think building that into the product, we might be, building Andrew out of a job. But yeah, that's one thing I would love of some super smart way of giving that live feedback, during these workshops. So
That's amazing. Okay, so I'm done with like my icebreaker questions to make us understand, how people think and just to break it up a little. So now we can go to some of the traditional ways in which we have our conversation, which is hello, Julia Cosolo. It's a pleasure to meet you. Can you tell us what you've been doing since birth?
nice to meet you all, and yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. But I might not start it at day one out of the womb here, but I'll tell you more about like in school I studied business, so it was a pretty generic kind of topic. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I ended up kind of coming into Experience Point as a summer intern. So at that time, I was literally packing boxes of our workshop materials and sending them out to our clients before the workshop. So that was kind of my first role, and doing things around the office, kind of people ops coordination type of thing. So yeah, since then I've worn so many hats. I was doing accounting for a little bit. There was a newfound sort of product team coming together. It was not even officially known as product, because I think that was a very new thing back when I was joining. So yeah, just my main thing has always been like, say yes to something, see if you're good at it, see if you like it, and see where it takes you. So all of these have taken me to kind of where I am now. So now I think it's been like 3 years perhaps on the product team, and have been able to work on, especially recently, kind of our change management line of workshops. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's a quick story of, more professionally, maybe how I got here. But yeah.
In a weird coincidence, yesterday I was talking to the person that Julia reported to as an intern, our colleague Tanya, and she mentioned about you, Julia, how when you were an intern, she called one of the founders of the company and said, like, we've got to find a way to give this person a role, even if we don't have something. So I wonder if you would elaborate for a second, like, um, what were you doing? Do you think that was getting you noticed, or what attitude did you bring to work when, like you said, at that time it might have been, intern work, putting boxes together, whatever was needed.
Yeah, it was always, Experience Point was always great because like the leadership would be very open to, like, if you have a new idea, if you have a better way that you want to do something, it's kind of yours to shape. Like, you're the one on the ground doing this kind of stuff day to day. So I remember I would only work, during the summer I would work 7 days, and then during the year I was starting to work part-time. So even with something like packing boxes, the days I was working was kind of all about optimizing, like, how can I make the least amount of work for people when I'm not here. So it's like one step ahead. I always, even to this day, like, my job is to serve others. Like, my job is to make everybody else's life easier. And even if you're a developer and you're doing something, a user interface for the user, it's like, how can you make their life easier and not make them do an extra step? So I think that philosophy has gotten me far, and often leads to appreciation from others too. So yeah, I think just willingness to like learn and try something even if I don't know, and then trying to help others as much as I can, leads to kind of better results 99% of the time. So
Thank you for that. So you mentioned you joined the product team 3 years ago, correct? So
so
let's go back like two steps, as in, why did you pivot to product? Because you mentioned you've done accounting, because girl, I have been the waitress, I have been that person that worked at that retail store, I did this, I did that, da, 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 right? So you landed. Why did you choose product? Or was it just, what, I was doing this so well that they moved me over here and I just loved it? What was that story like for you?
mhm. Yeah, it's I don't think I knew fully what I was getting into. I didn't know everything about product. It was more so, I think it's like, oh, here's a little assignment that someone might be able to help with. And it kind of all started with analyzing data. So that was my first step into product. And it's not necessarily what product is all about, but there is a big, area of like, understand what's going on. What are your competitors doing? What does the landscape look like? What are your numbers trying to tell you? How are things performing? It's kind of getting a good understanding of the current state. So I was more pulled in from we have a small task, a small project, and then kind of build a relationship with a woman, Donna, who was the head of product at the time. So that's how that one assignment turned into, oh, maybe you can help with this thing, this other thing. But I think looking back, now that I'm in product, I would intentionally join product because I love working with so many different types of people, and there's not many roles in the business where you can work with creative, work with development, work with facilitators, work with customers, pretty much every single department, marketing. So I think just that working with so many different types of teams aspect of my role, I would intentionally choose if I could do it again.
Julia, and welcome to anyone that's joined here, and folks will be viewing this afterwards. So if you have any questions for Julia, someone who's a product owner you'd love to ask, please, Nama, Lisa, put your questions in chat or jump in anytime. Julia, a question for you. I think it might surprise some people that you just talked about relationships, being in a company managing digital products. It might surprise some folks that relationships are such a big part of your job. I know you interface with customers, with all these different teams. Can you tell us a bit about why these relationships matter, what some of those interactions are like for you?
For sure, for sure. So I think the relationships and the information that you get from kind of the people who may be interacting with customers on a daily basis, like the sales or support team or facilitators who are in the room during those workshop experiences, it's one of the biggest kind of information sources. Like, of course, you have your numbers, of course, you might have your revenue, and that's really like what you see in the back office. But those insights into the front line, or even the observations of like, this is what I saw people with struggling that they might not mention in the survey. Like, that's a huge part of kind of the information that I need to help prioritize and make the right decisions that will help the people that we're trying to serve. So kind of that's one part of relationships where it's really beneficial. And then the other part is just whenever you're coming out with something new, you need all hands on deck. Like, there's no way as a product owner, as a developer, like, you can do it yourself. You can't just push that kind of release deployment button and everything is going to land well. Like, there's so much kind of pre-work and communications that you need to kind of arrange to make sure any change, like big or small, is received well. So I think that, like, getting something out into the world or making change to something existing, you need the whole team to help you with that. And I think if people don't like working with you or don't want to help you, it's a lot harder to kind of get them to take time out of their day to get up to date with here's what's coming next, and pass that news along, or know what to say if somebody has a problem with the new thing that you just released. So yeah, definitely many ways in which relationships are super critical to my role.
So essentially, you're running a campaign.
A lot of times, yeah. And even you're campaigning for, like, I have unlimited budget and I want to build something, I'm still campaigning for that thing to be built next. So externally, internally, there is a lot on relationships and communication. Much more than me writing everything in a doc and proceeding to go ahead. It's kind of, everyone's going to have a different reaction. Everyone's going to want it done a different way. And it's up to you to kind of balance all the things that, go into a great output or a great product.
Okay, so one of my other questions, now that you said that, is what is your hardest trade-off that you've ever had to make as a product owner?
Like, time is always that finite resource. So obviously, like, we want to build amazing user experiences all the time, and we don't necessarily have the time to allocate towards all of the different products and systems that we have. So that's, I think, always the biggest trade-off of, like, we know we can make user experiences and problems probably go away. And the hardest thing is to say, like, sorry, we're not doing that right now, or no, we can't do that right now. Because of course there's a limited amount of time for people to work on this. So maybe not super specific, but in general, like, user experience for time available is the hardest trade-off, because something might be improved in a certain way, but you're just not able to do it because it's not the biggest priority for the business at the time.
Okay, one of the things that I noticed, like everything is a priority, it seems, or everything has that type of mode of it being a priority. So it's let's talk about like skill sets because now you're incorporating project management into what you're doing, right? How do you manage if everything is a priority?
Yeah, it's a lot of almost translation work and kind of connecting. There's what the business wants to become in the future is kind of like one direction, and internally as a company you have to have your own perspective of like, here's where we're going, here's who we want to be to the world, and here's how we're going to get there. And then there's a kind of other tension of, here's what's going on in the real world. It is changing so quickly. We don't necessarily know what people want in 2 years, but we know what they want now and we know what's happening now. So it's always that kind of balance of like, what is the right thing to build next? It could be the most amazing thing to build, but maybe not the most amazing thing for your business. So, it might be a platform like Instagram could say, we want to start becoming the new Netflix and build hour-long movies on there. And maybe that's a great idea, but also maybe that's not where Instagram wants to go in the next 2 years. So maybe that's not the priority. So it's always around like, what is kind of going to be aligned with the business goals of who we want to be in the future. And it's like, how much money do we need to be able to do those other things that we want to do in the future too? So what's going to actually help generate that revenue is a big thing that decides a lot of the time too.
Okay, I had to unmute because I keep forgetting that I'm on mute and I start wanting to talk. That happens at mind you, I've done this like every other day for years. So, anyway, how do you balance like the new feature development versus like a technical debt versus like a bug fix? I
Mm-hmm.
know that you're constantly having to work in those the
Mm-hmm.
structure constantly. So not only I think that for people to understand the scope of how I see you, it's like you're over here, you're doing your priorities. Then you're over here, you're having to fix bugs. Then you're over here having to run a whole campaign on people, so that they're okay. So let's talk about the bug fixes. How do you throw that into the whole pool of
Yeah.
what you've got going on?
Yeah. So anything that is critical, obviously, is always first priority. So if something is broken, there is no way to use it, the system is down, kind of like S1, worst case scenario, that always goes to the top of the list. And what we try to do is there a non-technical way to solve the problem or ease the pain? And a lot of times kind of that determines how urgently we fix it or when it will get addressed. So I think for bug fixes, it's if it's broken, like completely broken, and it's a critical feature, so people can't do what they came here to do, it's got to be like drop everything and get this out immediately. And that usually looks like there's support calls going through, like we have a workshop coming up in 2 hours, or someone is in a workshop and something big is not working. So that's kind of what something super critical looks like. Something else might be like we get feedback and there's some text and it's kind of looking a little bit weird but still legible. That might be something that we say we're going to do after our current kind of big rocks, big priorities are done. So that's on the bug fixes side. I know you talked about technical debt and new features. And one of our kind of technology, like lead kind of CTO role that we have here has been the biggest advocate of tech debt, because honestly, I don't think ExperiencePoint has prioritized tech debt for a very long time. And now we're at the point where it's like, it's a big risk to keep things on old technology. And there are so many other issues with that. So I don't think I'm the best person to advise on tech debt, but that is something like a muscle that we're recently kind of prioritizing and making sure we just have that allocated budget up front. So it's kind of, no matter what, we are going to be modernizing this very old technology for X number of days, or this percentage of our time has to be protected for developers because it's going to get in the way of future growth. So yeah, tech debt side, that's kind of all I have to say on that. And then new features, yeah, we would love to be spending all our time on this, but we can't always do that. But it's mainly related to like what's a kind of bigger milestone or deliverable. So sometimes it might be we have a huge client that needs to put in 500 people through a workshop, but our technology only supports 200. The workshop's been sold and it's happening in 4 months. So that's obviously going to make something a priority. Ideally, we don't operate in such a reactive way, and it's more, we're setting out to do this on our terms and our timeline. So yeah, the new feature is kind of all the time that we have possible, minus bug fix, minus tech debt. But we always want to be doing something that leads to growth and kind of new revenue being unlocked. That's the dream.
Hey, a quick question, Julia. Like, I know you launched a new product like very recently, and it's at that stage where new product, you're also drinking in feedback. One of the things I've seen you do really well, I think anyone here or anywhere could learn from, is like the way you receive feedback. And I wonder, like, yeah, what your internal process is. This product is your baby. You've invested so much, but you also want to hear every little thing that might be critical people have to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about seeking that feedback, and then how do you process it as it comes in?
Mm-hmm, for sure. So one of the things that we teach is like, fall in love with the problem, not the solution. So in the same way, even though it's like I've been shaping the product since day one, it is my baby. I can't get personally, offended or sad when I hear somebody say something that's like, oh, this was kind of disappointing, or this was missing this thing. It's, I'm not going to be in denial. I'm not going to say, oh my gosh, like they hate what I've built. So it's totally not a personal thing. And, you have to remind yourself that's like everybody on the team and many clients and many people have experienced just as many positives as someone might have said something negative. So there's that first level of kind of, deep breath. It's everybody's going to love it, everyone's going to hate it. Like there's going to be different things that come in, and it's not at all personal. So that's the first reminder. And then also it's like we put things out into the world early because we want this. Like this is the way, you have something 90% complete and you want to get feedback at that stage, because 100% probably has gone in the wrong direction without actually interacting with the people who use it. So I always remind myself that feedback is helping this become, an amazing product. And what I would create on my own would not be an amazing product. Like it needs real different types of people. It needs real use cases. So it is pretty much part of the product development process. Like in our dream world, we could design a beautiful user interface and something that we consider perfect, and then we put it out into the world and someone is using it in a totally different way than we expected. And that's totally okay, because we're not going to stop that from happening. We're just going to take that as feedback and design it in a way that might work best from what we learned. So yeah, always looking at it as kind of a learning opportunity rather than personal criticism or like someone trying to be negative. And yeah.
No, that's a good perspective. And I like your answer where you're like, okay, that's great, but if I did this, if it was my own, it would be this way, right? So because you said that, it triggered another question for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is a product outside of your own, that inspires the way you think about design and strategy? What are some of those? Was it videos? Was it books? That got you in the direction, or keeps you inspired, or just inspires overall?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A very good one. So there's like one website I often go to. It's very visual. I almost think of it like Pinterest for kind of like user experience and design. It's called Dribble. So a lot of the early projects I worked on were kind of website related, like web design related. So Dribble was always a source of inspiration. And I always find things that are simple, like Apple is a classic example. There's a meditation app I've used before called Open, I think. So some of these, like it's very beautiful, it's very simple, it feels very human to use. I don't have questions about, things popping up at me that I don't understand. Things are very intuitive. Things feel, right where I need them. If my thumb is here, the next button is close to my thumb. So platforms that feel very human and easy to use is definitely inspirational. And then kind of seeing the latest on visual design and things like that. There's sites like Dribble, or there's Nielsen Norman Group, I believe it's called, has a lot of like studies that actually help of, what's a more readable looking page, and, what's a more natural interaction, and all of these things. So those are kind of my go-tos in terms of inspiration.
I love that. I'm all about that meditation life. So, because I need it. I'm always out here doing 10 things that I have no business doing. So I always have to calm myself down afterwards. Like, all right, chick, you're busy, but slow it down. You know. So if your product had a personality, what type of personality would it be?
This is a great question. I think it would be like a helpful kind of friendly guide, I would say. Like maybe for context, like our most recent product is a 2-hour change management workshop. It's very practical, very hands-on. So I think a very friendly kind of, maybe like a hiking guide or someone like that, tour guide. Like, we're gonna do this in an hour. I'm going to show you everything. I'm not going to give you the whole historical breakdown of the city, but we're going to see a lot of things. We're going to go inside and like actually touch the buildings and sit inside, and we're not just going to drive by. So I would say maybe like a friendly tour guide.
I love that. And those tour guides are like super active and have like a whole bunch of personality because they got to keep everybody going. All right, team, y'all ready? And you're all like, yeah, okay, just go. We got our coffee in hand. We're moving with you slowly. Leave us alone. So let's talk about what you do love, right? Because there's certain components about loves, like there's components about the jobs that we have that we just like, we have another word for it, right? So let's talk about what we do love. And this is not specific to people. So Andrew, you're not hearing anything. She's just talking about what she loves, right? So what do you love about what you do? And at the end of the day, when we're in positions where we're not able to connect to who we are when it comes to creative spaces, right? Sometimes I feel like some of us are more tapped into that space based on the type of positions that we have. So, when I look at you, I'm not talking about the craziness that comes with the responsibility of what you do. I'm talking about the essence of who you are and what you're doing. So, what do you love about what you do?
I think the thing that always brings the biggest kind of smile to my face is the realization that it's real, and people are acting like real people are experiencing this and getting some sort of help or value out of it, even if it's the smallest little piece that kind of stays with them. So it's always super rewarding. Like sometimes we'll go along with the facilitators to see the workshop in real life, and like people smiling, people having these aha moments. It makes kind of like everything we do here just come to life, and that impact I think is always the most rewarding. Or getting a piece of feedback from somebody who really went through it, or who somebody was really there that I don't know at all, is probably what I love most. Yeah.
I love that because it goes back to like the instant gratification without it being something that is just highlighted. but it's one that is internal. Instant gratification for me is like I finally finished putting up a project that I've been working on, and people are giving me that feedback. I'm not looking for that feedback while creating. I'm looking for, hey, this is what I produced.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. And when you're creating, it's like the room is a mess. You've got your materials everywhere. Like it is not ready. You are sweating.
Right.
So it's
Right.
that like the little breath once you put it up on the wall.
Right, right. Okay, so I'm glad that you've been here and you've answered like a lot of our questions. And, we're slowly winding down. So I want everyone to think of any questions that they may have, just because I will get long winded and just go my sideways. So, I need the people that are here. If you guys have any questions, I know you've learned a lot, and it's been great having you here for the participants. Yes, please go ahead, jump right in. Otherwise, I will take up your time and you'll be like, that host gave us no time. I don't know who she thought she was. You could turn on your mic and just ask your question. So this way it doesn't come across like I am selfishly hogging this mic.
Julia, we were so lucky. Last week we had this incredible graphic designer out of Nigeria sharing some lessons, and he shared like it's when you're learning, it's way more important to learn the tenets than the tools. You shared a bunch of the tenets that like you respect in your work, but I wonder about like some of the tooling, some of the if so there are people in the AWIC community here that are part of organizations that are interested maybe in product ownership, product development, and also entrepreneurs. Where do you think is a great place to start learning, like either tooling or tenets? Where could people start learning without investing big?
Like if you're looking to get hands-on with things, like if you have an idea, you know enough to build something, I would say is the kind of main thing I would share. Like I think a lot of times like, oh, I don't know anything, I don't know how to get started, but you could build a prototype so easily. Like we use something called Replit a lot of the time, and it's like it helps you create a prototype really quickly, or even a super basic level is like use a PowerPoint slide, create some shapes and text boxes, and that really helps bring your idea to life. And you can start getting feedback from friends, from family, like just articulating what you're thinking about. And it's never too early to build something. So I think tools like Replit, if you want to get more into kind of the design side, Figma is a big one, but that's a little bit more complicated to use. So yeah, like some of the tools, just I would say get started on prototyping. LinkedIn is a great place for knowledge, I find. Like if you probably just look up product management, there's so many free guides and resources and information and tips. So yeah, like even YouTube or LinkedIn, Medium has a lot of articles. So if you're looking more just to kind of read and learn, those are some great sources. But yeah, I would really say it's never too early to get started. And now with things like ChatGPT, if you have an idea, that's a great way to get started and get feedback immediately of like, imagine you're this type of person and I'm designing something that works like this. What would you say? How would you use it? So yeah, just start building if you have something that comes to mind.
Shannon, I think you had your hand up there. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question. I wanted to ask, what is that legacy that you'd wish to leave when you finally retire?
This will just be not very product related, but I always love the quote, like people will not remember what you said, people remember the way you made them feel. So I think always just bringing people a little bit of positivity and feeling like I cared about them. I think that's my legacy I hope to leave, whether it's our customers, whether it's the team that I work with every day, whether it's my friends and family that I, spend time with outside of work, is that like they feel like I care. Might be the really angry customer that hated the experience, that calls our support line angrily, that our team has to kind of respond to. But yeah, just people feel like I cared.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Shannon. I don't know if you guys have any more
Yeah,
questions.
Noah's question in chat. What do you think about AI and how much is getting involved in the product UX designing world? Thanks, Noah.
Thank you. That's a really great and timely question. So, yeah, I think our perspective on this is kind of changing every day. And a lot of times it's like the fear of like, will it replace me? Will it replace things that I do? And I think it can be a very great, almost like think of it as a friend, a little friend that you have with you all the time that you can bounce ideas off of, you can get feedback on. But at the end of the day, you're not going to kind of blindly listen to your friend and do exactly as they say. It's like, if your friend jumps off the bridge, are you going to do that? Like, probably not. Depends how good of friends you are, how much you support them. But yeah, so treat it like, I would say, a friend, a person that you're kind of talking to, discussing with, but don't kind of give up that, decision making ability or like full control of like, run my life, create my product for me, to AI. And yeah, AI has the power to be not just one friend, but 1,000 friends. So if you think about that, of you're building a product, like what do you want, someone to do 1,000 times that you could never get a human to do? There might be an opportunity there, but more so like supercharge your abilities and what you're trying to build, rather than passing that builder seat over to AI completely.
Okay, so I have like a question, which you're gonna like these type of questions because it's kind of quirky, right?
Love it.
So, here are the questions. The top 5 apps. Which one would you date? Which one would you ghost? you know. So, and which would you marry? Right.
Mm.
So let's start with Slack.
Slack. Oh, it's either date or marry.
Yeah. Or ghost. Date or
Not
marry.
ghost, not ghost. I can't ghost that. Otherwise, I'm burning relationships and probably out of a job. My developers that I work with will ghost me. I'll say date. I'll say
Okay.
date because super helpful,
Mhm.
but sometimes you need a break. So
Right. Right.
let's do date.
No marriage there.
Yeah. Don't
What
want
about
notifications on all the time.
exactly? What about Notion?
Hmm. Notion is marriage material. Notion is definitely marriage material. Reliable, you can kind of interact with it at your own pace. It lets you do a lot of things if you want to, whatever, like career wise, you could do what you want there. Personal wise, you could do what you want there. So I would say like marriage. Notion is marriage.
Okay. And do you use like product board? Uh-huh.
I don't, but I've heard of it.
Okay. What other product board do you use?
Yeah, we use Monday.com as kind of our like triage and that sort of thing.
Okay. Let's speak about Monday.com. Would you date Monday.com? Or would you
Mm.
ghost it?
Like I need it now, but it's one thing. I think we could be like, I could be on the path to ghosting if, some sort of AI solution comes out where like you're not manually entering and moving things around. So that might be on, we're dating, but it might go to ghost soon. If something better comes along that is
Right. That's
meant.
that's the whole point. We keep our options open.
Yes.
All right. So one more question before we wrap up, and actually two more. One's going to be a real funny one, and one's going to be a real serious one. If your backlog were a playlist, what would the top 3 songs be?
Mm. There's gotta be something with like, something is burning. Like there's gotta be something there.
Yeah.
Um, oh, the names of songs. I'm like, there's always that song like changes. That's
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
we talk about a
Yeah.
lot.
That's an old classic. I love that song.
Yeah, that's on the backlog too. What else? Yeah, maybe some like birds chirping is the third one. Because some things are on the backlog, but a very long term, like we're gonna come back to this when we reevaluate our priorities. So a little bit
So
of bird chirping sound.
so it's like that part of the movie where they do this long ass segment where they play this music that lasts forever. You feel like you went on a 2 hour journey, but it was only like all of 5 seconds. So, but it's very long,
Yeah.
but with good music along the way. So I really want to thank you so much for taking the time to come join us. Opportunities like this is really what helps us to grow. And it's great to meet people like you that are actually involved and that are actually stepping into their careers, whether they're fairly new, advanced. All the things that you've gathered and the information you have really helps people like myself and the community as a whole when we're looking at what positions play a part within tech. And tech has so many different legs. And I think the hugest part was always understanding that it didn't involve coding. And then now that we are beyond that and into segments like yours, where if we had to look at all the questions you've answered today, you are a project manager, you're a psychologist, and last but not least, you're the team spirited campaign manager that has to bring everyone together at the end of the day. So it's just not one facet of what you do. There's many components and facets, and you allowed us to see that, and you were open to us. So thank you for sharing. My last question for you. Others could have a last question, but my last question to you is: what advice would you give to others as they're pushing forward currently?
I would say like this advice, especially specifically for women, but have audacity. Like believe that you can do something when you think you can't. I would say, yeah, I'm living with and dating a man right now, and the way he sees and operates in the world has shaped a lot of like, oh, you can be this confident, you can go for things that you're not 120% sure about. But that's my advice, especially to women, like have audacity, speak up for things that you want to do and you want to go for and you believe in, and that will be respected. Like obviously don't be rude about it, but yeah, don't make yourself feel smaller because you think you can't do something, because you most definitely can. So
You mentioned the guy that you're with. Can you send us that prayer point?
I
Because there's
will.
some specifics, that some of us get lucky with, and we're like, send that prayer point because we
Yes.
know it. I'm, I'm sorry I interrupted your thought process. I
No,
didn't know if you had
no,
any more words.
no. I
No?
think that's
All right.
that's about it. Yeah.
Okay. Did anyone else have any thoughts or final anything before we sign off?
Thank you, Annie. I actually finally got through the technical
Yay!
problem. Thanks. Hey, Julia, thank you so much for your add-ons and for setting up a time for us here. I have one last question. Um, did you have to be a full timer product owner when you build your own product, which is an EP? And if you didn't, how did you manage to be a full-timer employee and a full-timer builder for your product?
Yeah, I think I I had to be full time for sure. Full time it feels like not enough time most of the time. So yeah, definitely be full time. And the biggest thing is just making something your priority and making sure your time is able to be dedicated towards something. And a lot of times it's, it might be working with your manager to set expectations about like, if you want this big thing, done by a certain time, like these are the things that maybe won't be done until later, or maybe won't be done at the same pace that they used to because we have this big deliverable. So yeah, I would say protect your time and make it known and make sure everybody has kind of the same idea of like, this is our big priority. And they're not expecting you to do 10 other things because they think it's a priority. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It did. Thank you so much.
All right. So we have had a complete session. We definitely want you to come back and join us. Don't think that your job is done because now that we find you, you kind of ours. So,
of course, anytime.
So thank you everyone for joining us today. And this was just an eye opener, an introduction into being a product owner. We will probably have this segment again in another quarter, but for the most part, I think that this is great for an eye opening. If you have any questions or suggestions later on for Julia, please let us know. We will make sure she gets that information. You could actually follow her LinkedIn. If you look at her bio on AWID Hub, you could see her LinkedIn. Feel free to follow her there as well. But thank you, everyone. I hope you have another wonderful day. This was a good Hump Day Wednesday. I learned a lot, and I thank you all for being here with us. Andrew, thank you again for putting this together. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Anie, for the amazing hosting and amazing questions. It's so fun to be a part of, and thank you, everybody, for being here.
All right. Everyone have a good day.